Welcome to Our Pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. But we are currently on an indie intermission, and we are covering Olivia Hill's I Hunt, a wonderful book about killing monsters in the gig economy, kind of like an Uber for vampire killers. But before we get into that, Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Okay, Hannah, I read this book that I don't know how to describe it. I want to say like, oh, it's so fun, but the topics in it, they're not like fun topics. It's called Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily R. Austin. Have you heard of this book?
I think I have.
I do not know the way to describe this book, but just say that everyone needs to read it because, or maybe don't. I don't know how it's going to sit with people, but it's about a girl named, I always say girl, but these are adults, so probably woman is more appropriate.
Woman. Yeah, woman.
It's about a woman named Gilda who is a lesbian, and she ends up working for a Catholic church as their administrative assistant. The way that she comes to work at this place is because she finds a flyer saying that the church is offering free therapy resources, and she goes for that and is mistakenly taken as a person applying for their administrative assistant position and does not know how to be like, no, I'm here for therapy. So she ends up accepting the job.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
There's so many things that in her life that are going on, and some of them are funny and some of them are tragic and some of them are just hard, but it's just a really creative book. And I'm going to share one point from this book that had me laughing very, very hard, even though it's not a super funny situation all around. But if you want to skip spoilers for Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead, jump like a minute. But okay. So Gilda starts working as a secretary at this Catholic church, and she has no money. Like, she cannot even afford to get food. She's basically trying to wait it out until she can get a paycheck. So as she's waiting it out, she says, you know what, I'm going to steal some crackers from the church and take them home and eat them. She gets home and she goes to look up these crackers because she wanted to give them a bad review online because they tasted terrible, and finds out that these were communion wafers.
Of course, yeah.
And this is like the funniest thing to me because I'm trying to picture someone coming to the realization that these were not, in fact, just typical crackers. These were communion wafers. No wonder they had no taste or flavor.
For everyone who was not raised in the Catholic Church, like, there are different versions of communion wafers. Like, some are, yeah, well, but some are like, if you go to like a Lutheran church, I believe sometimes it's like little hunks of bread, or sometimes you actually have like real crackers, but like Catholic hosts is what they're called.
They are specifically made.
And they are tasteless. There is no taste to them. And they're just like little pieces of something. They might as well be like little toddler puffs, the way they just like melt on your tongue. And it's just a weird taste and there's nothing to them. So the fact that a woman was like, I'm going to chow down on some.
She ate like an entire bag of them and then decided she was going to go online and give them a bad review because they had no taste, and discovered that they were communion wafers.
That's amazing.
This is just an example of like some of the humor in this, because it's like, okay, this situation is not funny because she has no money, but it is funny from the standpoint that she was going to leave a bad review for these crackers.
There is something to be said about like weird things that happen when you're poor. Like, I was just talking to someone about this, where we were talking about like me being a first generation college student and living in the house we did that was communal living, so that like, and we cooked and cleaned ourselves so that you could afford to pay for it. And I had to pay that all out of my pocket. And like, I would have to borrow money from my sister for rent and like try to go out on only $20 and like live off that. And I had an internship in DC where I got paid a stipend of like $250 for travel. And instead I would walk like 2 miles to work, like there and back every single day. to save the money so I could buy food. And like, I would go weekly to a farmer's market and buy like a $5 bag of vegetables and eat that like for most of the week. And I remember like girls would like go order out, and I was like, I just can't afford to spend $15 on ordering out. I mean, I still spent $12 on lots of barefoot wine, but I had a drinking problem. So like those happen. But like what you chose to spend your money on was very specifically like tied to what you could afford. And I remember like I was reading Anna Karenina while I was there because I could get it from the library, or like I got like a free ebook, or like watching pilot episodes on like iTunes because you could get those for free for entertainment. Like there are so many things that I'm just like, that's such a bizarre thing to do, but it's stuff that like, if you're not poor ever in your life, it seems bizarre looking. You
totally take for granted being able to just be like, oh, I'm just going to run to the store and grab this or whatever. And when you don't have the money to do that, you very consciously think about every purchase that you have to make.
I made a blueberry pie for one of my roommates for his birthday, and I only needed one bag of the blueberries, and I literally returned them because one bag was $12. And I was like, I can't spend $12 on blueberry. Like this was a gift and I didn't need both of them. So like I took it back and I returned it, and they got like a half unfrozen bag of blueberry. But like when the person was ringing me up, it was a grocery store worker, and they were like, oh my gosh, $12 for this bag. I don't blame you. It's like, that's just something you do. Like, and it was at a nice grocery store, and you just have to like figure things out. And it's such a, I think that there's a lot of humor in that. Like people don't realize how humorous it is to like eat an entire bag of wafers from church and be like, this is disgusting. And then finding out like you stole like what's supposed to be consecrated and it has a very specific purpose. Like that's so bizarrely funny in a way that it's like, oh yeah, walking 2 miles in like my office clothes every single day. Like that is humorous, even if it is a little weird in retrospect. And that's like, it is very, there's so many funny things that happen when it's like, oh, this is just a weird little thing.
Well, and the author does a great job of giving you this inside look of Gilda's mind, because the things that she thinks, I just would crack up at, because they're so anxious, but she also has such a, I don't know how to describe the tone, even where it's like, oh, this could be terrible. And like a person, I'll give another spoiler for this, jump ahead 30 seconds if you want to skip spoilers, but she finds out that the person she replaced at the church passed away. So she instantly thinks someone at that church murdered her. And so she's like doing this detective work to try and figure out who it is that did it. She's having thoughts about these people that she works with, and she's like, they could be a murderer. I wonder if they killed their wife that died or whatever. So it's just like stuff like that where I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just very funny.
Very dramatic woman. I love that.
It's just I really enjoyed it. I can see where it would not be the book for everyone, because I saw some ratings where people were like, this book is terrible, and I didn't think so. I gave it 5 stars because I thought it was a perfect combination of hilarious and also, you know, like really reflecting on a person's situation being difficult and trying to work through a difficult situation.
That's awesome.
So it really good. I highly recommend it. But
I love it, and I'll have to put it on my TBR because that sounds like a joy. I just started like watching Young and Hungry as my go to bed show, and like that show is terrible in many things. Like the laugh track is awful, but the way they actually show so bad. I hate laugh tracks, but the way they show like poor people, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like she and her friend live in a 1-bedroom apartment, and one of them just sleeps on the pull-out couch, and they trade who sleeps in the pull-out couch. And I'm like, no, that actually like, and it's San Francisco, so like, yeah, their apartment probably looks a little too big for, you know, but it's funny to have that. Like in the first episode, she sleeps with someone and she can't find her shoe, and she's like, I spent $19 on those. And I'm like, no, you do have those thoughts of like, that is $20 worth of my paycheck. I'm not So yeah, I think that I kind of love economic stuff because I think it's interesting and it kind of goes into the eye hunt of it all. So way to be on theme, Laura.
Yeah, totally on plan.
Are you watching anything fun lately?
Let me think here. What have I been watching? I can't think of anything new at the moment. I've just been watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine again.
I mean, always.
But it's one of my comfort shows. So yeah, it's fun. Hannah, what about you? What have you been reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So I have been mentally deteriorating over the move I'm doing soon. I go into full honesty, and like one of my coworkers was like, "Are you fine?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm fine where work is concerned, but like I sign off from work and I cried in my bed for 5 minutes." So I'm very overwhelmed right now. And because of that, moving is so hard, and I'm like I feel like I'm breaking up with my roommate. She and I've had so many discussions of like moving stuff out from each other. We had to go through our books recently where I was like, are these your books or my books? And like I actually keep a list, so it's relatively easy, but some of them you still don't know all the time. Especially when we lived together for 4 years and we are family, so we're very close, and we're just very like sad that we're both leaving like the puppies behind each other. And like just packing up stuff. Like packing is such a weird thing where when you're doing it, you're like, oh, I'm probably not going to use that many boxes. And then you stop and you're immediately like, oh my God, I have so many things. Like, so many. How did I always have these things? So I think I found my bird bone sweatshirt. So that is a silver lining. Yeah, I found a random tote of clothes that I didn't realize I had, even though my roommate told me multiple times it existed. Like I saw it and I was like, I specifically remember her telling me these existed, but then I completely forgot and was like, where's the bird bone sweatshirt? But because of that, I've been doing a lot of audiobooks, and I've been listening to every single one of Sarah Dessen's novels on audiobook. And honestly, it's a treat. I love Sarah Dessen. I grew up with her. I have like a very funny joke that I tweeted to Fuck Boys of Literature, where she was like, there has to be like a connection to people who read Lurlene McDaniel and like made up a fake illness, because Lurlene McDaniel wrote a lot about people getting cancer and angels and Amish people as well. You know, my weird Amish thing.
Yeah, apparently that was a thing for more than just you, though, because my other friend said that she also read a lot of Amish books when she was in high school, and I'm like, what? Why was that like a thing? Why was I such a weird person that I was like, a Fountainhead? Everyone should read the Fountainhead. And I'm an annoying person. And then everyone else was like, I'm reading Amish books.
I honestly think it's a thing where like it's mostly like Amish books have romance, but they're like not sexy. Like and in high school where you're like reading around friends and you haven't found like actual romance novels, and if you went to Catholic school, obviously they wouldn't give you access to romance novels.
Don't worry, this is a love story, but there's no sex.
So it's like I think Amish books were, sorry for like so much bluntness, maybe cut this out, but like I think it's for horny girls in high school, and it's like an appropriate amount of horniness. Like it's palatable. And so I think that's where it comes from. Like, I think it's many people's like sexual awakenings, but like quote unquote appropriate because their mom's not going to yell at them for reading an Amish romance. Like,
this is not a problem.
No, like
talking about woodworking.
Yeah, they're just going to be like, and like sometimes they get shunned, but it's like they only ever held his hand, and then he like they thought he died. You know, like those. That's definitely a plot line. Is like she gets shunned. She thought the love of her life died, and they kissed 2 times, and it was very scandalous. You know, but I said something like there is a pipeline of Lurlene McDaniel to Sarah Dessen to Jodie Picoult. That's a very specific brand of sad girl books. And so I've been doing all of Sarah Dessen's back catalogs. The ones I like the most are the ones I remember growing up with. So there might be some nostalgia factor in there.
I'm sure.
But I also appreciate her books because like some of the worst ones are her more recent ones, because I do feel like you can feel her age in them, and she's like looking up teenage topics. Like a lot of her books earlier on is like absent father, divorce, kind of like that's the trauma. But in the most recent novels, like one of the moms had like an alcohol addiction that turned into an opioid addiction. And I was like, Sarah Dessen, did you Google like opioid problems and you wrote a book about it, because that's what it feels like. And that's like, it's too real world for the frothiness of her novels. Like, because all of her novels are about like,
bring it back a little bit.
Really where it's like, this is supposed to be about a summer romance, but also her mother died via overdose, and like her dad's having unrealistic reactions to this. I think both of them should be in therapy. Like, and I think that's it. I need just enough trauma where them not being in therapy is okay and like kind of palatable. But when it gets to like something more serious, and then like one of the most recent ones I was reading, and I was like, okay, this is a girl who like, she has this like the best romance of her life, and then he dies via school shooting. Small like spoilers for one of Sarah Dessen's novels. I know a lot of our people who listen are very invested, but I was like, okay, but because it's supposed to be like a reveal that he died via like school shooting, he couldn't like live in the same town as her, so they had to be like long distance. And then weirdly enough, it's like they only really met face to face one time, and then they were long distance boyfriend and girlfriend. And I'm like, I'm not sure her trauma reaction to this is equal to like what his parents are probably going through. And like, this feels very weird as a plot device. Like, I didn't like school shooting as plot device. And like, to figure out that she should have like a new romance, it just, you shouldn't not believe in romance because your first boyfriend died in tragedy, which is something that happens to people. But it's just really weird to read it in like a frothy summer romance book to be like, it feels very white woman-y of her to do. To like put in this girl who's like now the main story is about her when like it shouldn't be. Like, this boy had friends and family and we're only focused on her, and she never interacts with any of them, and like even misses the funeral. And I'm like, that's okay, I guess. Like,
so there's like, I'm gonna ask you if you subscribe to this theory, but there's like a common joke that white women are addicted to like trauma and have to watch things like, they love true crime because they're addicted to trauma. They love to watch any kind of like, is it TLC where all of those shows are on, where it's like any kind of like Snapped or anything like that, or any kind of traumatic experience they just love. And I think that this is also a thing people seek out in books, and probably she's doing it in her writing too.
Yeah, where I do think like there is a little bit of like trauma porny that comes from a lot of white women specifically, where like, I'm not saying that we are two white women. There is of course a flavor of oppression that white women have, but our addictedness to like seeing ourselves in that gets a little weird. And like, this is something my roommate and I talked about, where like, and this is what made me uncomfortable with this book, where I remember specifically like there was once, and I'm sorry, trigger warnings for shootings, because we're going to get on this topic a little bit. Apologies. But I was once like working in a cafe that like was a flavor to grad students, and some guy came and then he returned to his like city, and he ended up like becoming a shooter somewhere. And I remember like at work one day, my boss was like, oh my gosh, do you guys realize that we could have served him food when he was here that day? And I like remember feeling kind of weird about it. And then I went back, and one of my coworkers was like, what a fucking white woman take. Like, oh my God, I might have served him food. Like, yeah, you might have served food to a lot of people. Why are you the focus of this? Like,
just think, if you work in customer service, just think of the constant creeps you're dealing with. Like, it's probably endless amounts of people.
It's like
90% of people that come in.
It's 90% of people are awful in their own flavor. So like, why are we centering?
It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just sold this to a racist. Like, yeah, like
it happens a lot more than you.
At least you got their money.
There is like a certainness of like Sarah Dessen that doesn't age well, where it's like, yes, you can see where she like figured out that not only white people existed, but there's still always ancillary characters. It's still always two white teenagers getting together. And like, then you figure out that she knows who gay people are, but it's still weird. Cause like in one of the most recent novels, there's like a coming out moment where I'm like, this feels aggressively 2000s-y to me, and not like this time period. This came out in the last couple of years. And I'm feeling her age a lot more in these more recent ones. But I still think like she has a lot of good themes in some of these books. And I'm guessing that not a ton of people who are younger than us are going to be reading Sarah Dessen's teenage novels. So I guess that's a little bit of a silver lining. Like it's probably just a lot of other white women doing it. They're fun to revisit. I have a lot of caveats to them, but it's frothy. And, you know, I also think she has a lot of good messages to hear from teenage girls. Cause like, and there are ones that like get kind of a bad rap, like this lullaby. I remember when I was reading it as a high schooler, I thought it was really boring, but as an adult, I'm like, oh, I really appreciate this character. And she said in interviews, like she tried to write about like the best friend character that popped up a lot in books, where it was like, it's a girl who like had a lot of sex as a high schooler and had a lot of casual sex as a high schooler and drank and has friends. And like, then she like gets into a relationship where she's pretty open about like, I don't want anything serious. And like my one huge red flags for this is it's a guy who like doesn't take no for an answer and like was like, I thought I was different. And she was like, well, I've told you from the start what I expected out of this. And then they break up. And then she does end up being like, oh, I think I want to be with him. But I'm like, okay, but at least Sarah Dessen was doing something with like giving us a different flavor of a girl who's like, because a lot of her characters are quote unquote not like the other girls and like shy and studious, which is great because a lot of people who read books as teenagers are all of those things. Right. But I appreciated in this lullaby that we got a different flavor of like someone who like didn't have something happen to them because they had casual sex as a high schooler. Who got to like drink and have fun with her friends and like make some mistakes. And it's not like, she's not vilified by all of her friends. Like one of her friends almost dislikes that like she's growing into a romance. And she's like, I like that we're both two people who don't need that. So like you're moving on from this part of our life and there's nothing wrong with this life. And I'm like, that's great to teach young girls that like, there are different types of women out there and they should not be vilified and they all deserve their own story at their own pace. And then like, even in the school shooting one, which was my least favorite, I gave it 2 stars. Like a huge point of it is like, she has to go on, like, she makes a bet with a guy that he has to have like a committed relationship for the summer and she has to casually date. And it's all about like casually dating and what a good date is. And it's like a lot of the dates she goes on, like, men don't ask her questions about her life. And as an adult woman, guess what? Still a problem. My roommate literally says sometimes if a date isn't going that well, she'll count how many times he asks her a question. And it's usually under 3. And it's like, and no, that's like a fact. Like, I think too many people on first dates try to convince you like they're interesting. And it's one of those things where it's like, I wouldn't be on a date with you if I didn't think you could be interesting. Don't try to convince me. Let's have a conversation to see if we like who we are and our interests. So like, but that's the thing where I'm like, oh, good. High schoolers can learn from this book that even if it's like whiteness overload, that like, you should casually date. You should get to know what a good date looks like and not just meet one guy and have that be your everything. And then like in my favorite book, The Truth About Forever, which is probably her best book in my opinion, the entire romance is built upon like they have a long-term game where they have to tell each other the truth out of any question they ask. And it's just like a continuing conversation with each other about learning what their likes and dislikes are. And like, of course, is miscommunication in it. But at the end of it, it's like, they know so much about each other. What a great showing of like what actual romance looks like is like actually getting to know each other as high schoolers. Cause that's not something high schoolers do very often. And like Along for the Ride shows like toxic parenthood and like what it can mean at the end of the day of like learning that your parents aren't perfect and maybe that's okay. And so like a lot of these books have a lot of good themes to them that I'm like, oh, I'm glad young Hannah got flavors of this, but also very white womany all over the page. Very like problematic. It can't be everything to everyone. And Sarah Dessen should not touch on dramatic themes.
Probably not.
And she does her best when I'm like, okay, like there's one called What Happened to Goodbye, and like the 2 characters in it, the romance in it, I'm like, this is very infantile, but also there are teenagers who have infantile relationships and that's okay too.
There are adults who have infantile relationships. So
And sometimes it slams me into what it felt like being a teenager, where it's like, do you remember when flirting was like poking at a guy and then he grabbed your hand to stop you?
Yeah.
And it was like a moment that happens in this book. And I'm like, oh my God, I remember doing that. Like, why were we convinced that poking and prodding each other?
Or like because we were stealing somebody's hat off their head.
Oh my God. We're so afraid of actual legitimate physical contact that we have to make an excuse to do it. So but it's been an enjoyable like escapism thing for my real novel readings, and I've been going through a huge reading slump, so that's helped me. But
I'm like curious like what the current popular authors are with teens at the moment. I'm like very removed from any children's middle grade or YA situations. Occasionally I'll read a YA, but I don't really know who's like a popular author, or I don't know. Yeah, what are tweens to young teens into reading these days on Reddit? That will be scary.
I know. I work at a library and regularly help teens. I'm in Southern Indiana, for what it's worth. Okay. Mary Lou's books are very popular, the Legend series and Warcross mainly, but it's like all of a sudden they've discovered the Young Elite series a couple years late. Jenny Han's To All the Boys I've Loved Before. The Ranger's Apprentice series. I don't know. A lot of realism, The Hate You Give, Dear Martin, I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, which was supposed to be one of your that I was going to give you I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter for your gift, and then I forgot it at my apartment, so I still own that book. American Street, Far from the Tree, More Than We Can Tell. So and then like Give a Boy a Gun by Todd Strasser. The older teens don't seem to have a lot of free reading. Most of what they help with is school related. Okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's very true. I like it. It feels like teens are getting into more like realistic novels than what we had, or like very fantasy heavy. So
which that kind of makes sense. I feel like that's kind of a thing for teenagers to really like fantasy.
But oh yeah, I loved fantasy when I was
why wouldn't you want to be out of this world? So
right. I just remember how obsessed I was with the Uglies books. Yeah. Okay.
I think I read those.
And then you have read those because I talked about my friend Rayma wants us to cover them for the podcast. And you were like, I've read them. So because there's going to be a Netflix series on it, I believe. Yeah. But I'm also watching Stranger Things. I'm halfway through the season. I'm not going to give spoilers because everyone's spoiling Stranger Things. And I think it's a show you should watch on your own time because it is heavy. And sometimes you just want to watch one episode at a time. And TikTok has made it your personal problem to try to spoil it for you. So
rude. I will say that I saw an article that cracked me up where it said people are just now realizing that Millie Bobby Brown is British.
Also, funniest TikTok I've seen was like a portion of an interview from her
where she realized interview.
No. That was
awesome.
Funny.
I watched that whole thing. That was great.
No, but she was recently on one with the guy who plays Will because they're like best friends in real life. And they were like, how old is Elle in season 4? And she was like, I don't know. And they're like, she's 14. And she's like, I'm 14 in the series? I thought I was like 16 or 17. Do you mean I was making out with someone when I was 13 years old? And she's like having a mental breakdown at the thought of her like being 18 in real life and playing a 14-year-old girl. And this is the first season where I was watching and I'm like, oh, she looks like an adult now. Like she's getting the adult features, which I get it. It's a TV show. I need to suspend my disbelief, but it's the first one where I felt like, oh, she looks less like a teenage tween.
I feel like it's really difficult, especially with shows that are hard to just continually produce like back to back to back to back, for them to be like, okay, we're going to use the same actors, but they're going to just be like a couple months older. And it's like, wait a minute. Wait. Now they're grown-ups. They were little kids last season.
That's recently like is it Gatton or Gatton? Gatton.
I think it's Gatton.
Gatton was like doing like my favorite interviews of them are them talking about how old they've gotten, because he was doing an interview with the guy who plays Steve. And he was like, well, I'm 20 now. And the guy's like, you're 20? And he like melts down. He's like, if you're 20, how old does that make me? Like at one point, someone asked the guy who played Luke, like Lucas, like, well, could you like talk about the change in your voice? And he was like, I was 13 and now I'm 20. That's the change in my voice. Like, obviously my voice is going to change. Why are you asking me about it?
Like I grew up.
Right. Those are my favorite anytime they're talking about their age progression. Cause like people watching kids grow up, like makes people's minds melt. And I'm like, yeah, this TV show.
I think the thing is, it's just when you're watching it on TV, it's hard for people to like grasp because it's happened so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So it just like messes with your mind to be like, oh my gosh, now Millie Bobby Brown is an adult. What?
But even my roommate was like, it came out in 2016. And I was like, oh yeah. Cause I remember I was studying for the bar when I watched it. I was still in my first relationship when I watched the first episode of Stranger Things, cause he and I were texting about it. So I'm like, I specifically remember when this started. So it's easier for me because I also have like pretty good recall when it comes to like, where was I when I was watching something the first time through? So but I do find it funny when people talk about how much they've aged. And I'm like, yeah, obviously they've aged. I've been in my career for like 6 years. So that tracks. Like,
and also there's just, because of the pandemic, it's just been really hard for people to recognize like that 2020 and 2021 existed. So it messes with people's minds in general to be like, oh, that was 6 years ago. And it was like, yeah, because we like kind of missed a couple years. But
2 years just stopped existing. Yeah.
They went so fast. It was just a blur, literally.
But with that, should we stop putting it off and get into our first indie intermission novel?
Yes.
This is I Hunt. I hope everyone has read it. If not, you guys should go buy it.
If not,
fun.
Stop, read it, and then come back.
Guys, and if you are stopping right now, just know this is a romp of a novel, as Caitlin from Bechtel Cast would say. This was so much fun to read. Olivia's been so great to us. She was great with the giveaways and everything. And we're just really excited to dive into the plot of this episode. But just know we're biased because we really like her. So, but we enter into chapter 1, and each of the chapters have a hashtag, and hashtag swipe left cuts us in directly into a fight. We meet someone who's trying to kill a monster, or a vampire, as one would call them. And she is trying to like capture him on a playground. She runs past people and she kind of like complains that this is going to make her lose money because
she's like, people are going to see me, but now I'm going to get a lower review.
Yes. And like witnesses get paid, and you find out like this is kind of via app where she was hired to kill this vampire in the park, and like people can give her a review, as Laura just said. And she hunts him down into a bathroom. He's like hiding in there, and she ends up being able to kill him, and takes like a video to prove that she killed him in the bathroom.
He's gone.
She takes money off of his body as a quote unquote tip.
So one of the things that I love about Olivia's writing is the way that it's like so snarky, but in like a very realistic way, where it's just like, okay, well that's might as well take a tip.
It's very much like our main character is named Lana, and Lana is very much just like a real person. I feel like this is a person you could meet on the street who randomly will just think about stuff. And she's like, I have a long blade. I call it my machete. Like,
you know what I call that? A machete.
And like,
because it is.
So she kills them. And she just says that they often like fade into nothingness, and like if you're church-based, quote unquote, you think it's because they're going back to hell. And she's like, no, I think it's just a survival trick. They die and they need to cover it up, so there's no evidence. But then she gets back to her house. She smokes a bowl, and she looks through all the different type of things that she can do for money. She notes that like if you swipe left, you kind of take a hit. But there are things like someone is like, oh, you get $500 if you can verify something's a hoax. And she's like, it's almost impossible to verify something as a hoax. Right. This is like, it's not actually a money-making thing. She lives in LA area. And so she's like, well, lots of people always want to get like some information and consults with a vampire for their publication because they think it's a big thing. And then she also notes that like sometimes people want to like rip her off. And then she sees that there's one in the resort district, quote unquote, which I'm pretty sure is just like loose talk for Disneyland. Like,
which that's what I kind of thought as well.
Yeah.
So like this whole first chapter, she basically is just kind of explaining what she does and how she gets hired for these jobs.
mhm.
And it sounds like certain areas are more known to have activity than others.
Yes. And so she says that there's one to take down a group of vampires, $5,000 per head, and it's a corporate contract. And she's like, yeah, that works, because she actually works in quote unquote Disneyland.
Yeah.
And she also gets a 3-star rating from the Vampire Kill because again, she was seen on
which I love that take that it's like there's actually like stipulations to this where it's like, okay, you can use this app to like get gigs to hunt monsters, but you have to do a good job, because if you have a poor rating, like you're not going to get hired for more.
Right.
So I love that.
Why it's very Uber, because like they gave her 3 stars and she's like, 3 stars can tank my rating. And that's what happens to drivers a lot of the time. Like their ratings from users were so much more than like anything else. So if someone has a bad night, then like it just doesn't look good. And she's like, they just don't understand how the gig economy works. And they also say that there was sloppy cleanup because the police know to look for ash piles, which I also liked. There's like a line that stuck with me from Bones where he's like, I don't know if it's evidence, but this wall of knobs is really creepy. And I feel like that's like police officers being like, well, there's a ton of ash. That feels creepy.
So much of this book, though, like the tone that the author uses for the characters just cracks me up, because things are said just in such a sarcastic way where it's like, well, I guess that's what it is. They know to look for the ash. So great job.
And she knows that like iHunt is kind of a monopoly. It's the only one in business. They're the only monster killing app, and like people can take a cut for you. And like lots of people try to take a cut from you because they don't want to pay the entire thing. And like that was this guy with a rating. And if you get a low rating, you end up having to like take a test to like reapply for this. And it's also very much based on who you know, kind of like the Raya dating app. Where like you have to have recommendations to get you on iHunt. We find out later that you need at least 2 recommendations. She also talks about how like this was probably a cop based on the request, or was this one a cop or someone else? There was one where it was like, this is probably
one of them was a cop, but I don't know if it was the first one.
It is the first one. It says that he's probably a cop. They're supposed to be anonymized, but like
tried to like take credit for it and gave her bad reviews so you could take credit for it himself.
Right. Like they want a dead monster, but they want credit. So they're and she's like, the cops are crooked as fuck. And it's like, well, that's fair.
Correct.
And they hire them, but try to like take a cut from the money, because if they can cut it, they'll say they paid her the entire amount, but they didn't. And I love this. She goes, they're also cheap unless you really need the money. It's a bad idea to take cop contracts, but I needed the money pretty much.
Right.
And then she has to go, someone comes up for rent. Her landlord, she has to go to the ATM. She has to get money orders. And it's like a lot of this book is talking about, again, what we talked about, the theme of earlier in the episode, just like how the cost of being poor and the poor tax on everything. And that's kind of with the ATM, where it's going to take like $3 to get money to pay. She also notes that Trump Triumphs is on the newsstand, which ironically, I do know that Olivia Hill started this novel the day Trump won. So she was much more proactive than me on that day. So she like also gets hit on by the guy at the bodega because he likes her, but he gives her like, he always like slips her free food. So, she pays her rent. She has to pay a late fee of it. And she has to get to work. And this is where she's like, it's expensive being poor. You have $75 late fees, $6 money order fees, and $3 ATM fees on the front end, and another $3 on the back end, and $35 for overdraft fee. And so she's like, a $3 dinner at home becomes a $7 dinner at In-N-Out because you're spending so much time trying to get stuff done. But this is where we find out that she also works at the resort district, aka I'm just going to keep calling it Disneyland because that's fair.
It's probably what it is.
And I love that, like, she bitches about, like, oh, look at these hidden secrets that you have to pretend are hidden, and like everyone's like, oh my god, it's so magical, and she's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, because she leads tours at her job.
Yes, and she has to be dressed up. She also has a friend named Denny who works at the crepe place as like a side job, even though he is a librarian, and he has the hots for her, but she keeps like pushing him off. So he's cute if you like plain. But
see, that's the kind of like tone that I just find hilarious.
I know.
It's cute if you like plain.
This gives me the energy of every time. And could you remember the girl in college where anytime she'd be like, he's kind of cute? I'm like, you like baby faces. That was like all I ever say. Like, yes, he is cute if you like baby faces, which you obviously do.
You do.
So you have a type. Don't we all? But she also notes that like this new job she has is probably from a corporate entity on iHunt. And that vampires' numbers are exploding. She also, a guy is there in a MAGA hat. He tries to quote unquote compliment her by being awful. And then he gets mad at her and tries to assault her when she flips him off and is like, I'm not going to take this. So then she beats him up using all of her training and has to get out of there before the cops show up. Then she has to go back into the shopping center because she sees because someone kind of flagged that they found one of the vampires she's looking for and that he seems to be a major creep. And she also talks about not wanting to go to the hospital and how she has like a baggie of treats in her first aid kit. So she goes in. Well, Denny lets her back into the work area. She goes into a Forever 21 back staff entrance, and the vampire is there sucking the blood of a woman, and he tries to bite her, but she's taken blood thinners. And I promise this book is very entertaining. I feel like I'm giving it like a very monotone, like, here's what's happening chapter by chapter, but this is much more fun than Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time.
Oh my gosh, yes. Not even a comparison.
So much more fun. But yeah, so she took a blood thinner, and so he gets like really mad at her. Like, it's almost victim blamey where he's like, how dare you take a blood thinner on me? It's
you find out that if you take a blood thinner, like if you have warfarin or something, that it will cause them to be very sick. It's like toxic to vampires, and so then they kind of like die from it, poisoning.
But like also because she's been bitten, it also feels like ecstasy pretty much when you get bitten by a vampire, because you're supposed to like
bitten.
Yes, it's supposed to very much feel like I want this to keep going, which is
and
like,
there's also like the glamoring aspect that you have with vampires and other stories too, that exists as well, where they can kind of glamour you into like wanting to be bitten, and then you want to be bitten again after you have them because it feels like the greatest thing ever.
And even like the guy, she's like, he's disgusting. I have to remember he's disgusting. And you have to like pretty much do self-inflicted harm to remind yourself.
You have to bite
like,
your tongue or something, be like, stop.
Bring yourself into the real world. And so she is like losing blood. The vampire is fighting her, and she realizes Denny comes in and tries to help her fight off the vampire. And he's like horrified that vampires really exist. At this moment, she also says she takes a coffee cup that says "#1 Dad." I doubt that's actually true. And so she fights him off, and she also talks about like how stakes are kind of useless when it comes to this kind of stuff, because it's just really hard to kill a vampire by like shoving a stake in their system, especially when you're a petite,
you have to
young
have
woman.
Perfect aim, and then you have to like get it in between the ribs and stuff like that. It's like, come on now.
And so, but she does enable herself to kill him with a stake. But then she's lost a lot of blood, the woman's lost a lot of blood who they like helped save. So she
and then in
gives
the
her
fight, she too also lost a lot of blood.
yes, but she does give the woman even more blood to keep her going. And she's like, I'm a type O negative, a universal donor. And she won't let Denny take her to a hospital. So they call another app. Like, I love all the
there's like this
different random
contracting
apps.
medical app, which
Yeah.
is actually a cool concept where I'm like, can we apply this to real life?
Right.
Like,
Except it would be so expensive.
It
But
would
it's like,
be, but it's kind of cool.
I know it's freelance doctors who are working under the table, and it's called Med PDQ. And you plug in your symptoms just like WebMD, and then they put in someone who's like close by. And so she puts in 2 patients, massive blood loss, no open wounds, just need blood. She gets Jane, who she's like, she's a good doctor. I like her. And like Jane tries to give her a cut, but it's still so expensive to get blood because they have to like the Red Cross like bills people, and like you have to get all this under the
per
table
unit or whatever. And she's like,
yeah,
I'll give her as many as she needs, and I'll only take like half of what I need.
I know. And so, and they also carried anti-venom for the deadly ones, so like they kind of have everything. And so she takes what she can use to live, and she gives the woman like everything she needs, and she finishes the transfusions, and they all kind of just sleep and eat. And this like section made me laugh because there are parts of this where like so funnily rushed, where like the girl who's been bitten by a vampire wakes up and she's like, my name is Vanessa, why don't you all sleep on the pull-out couch with me? And I very much enjoy, because like I could see that also happening in real life, where like you're kind of out of it because you've had a lot of blood loss and a lot's happened to you, and you see someone sleeping on the floor and you're like, that's silly, come on the bed.
I love how you just like said that though, like, hello, my name is Vanessa, come sleep on the couch with me. And I'm like, really, like someone in that kind of state is probably less so like, hello, my name is Vanessa. It's probably more like, I'm Vanessa, and then they're like crashing and just like, get up here.
You can sleep on the bed. It's like the most polite, like half drunk person in the world.
Yes.
Like, just get on the bed. Like,
that's kind of what I was picturing. But I love the take of, hello, my name is Vanessa. Come sleep on the flat couch with me.
It just seems so light and airy that like in my head it's just like, hey, come sit with me. But you're right. That's probably how it goes. But in my head it's just sometimes I'm
like
just
the
so
happy
amused
version.
by stuff.
It's much funnier.
Well, Vanessa to me was such a light character in this book, where she just took everything in stride, where she's like,
well,
okay,
we'll get there when we talk about the
real.
characters. But there were so many times where I was like, why is she so willing to just like jump into these things? I would be like, slow down a minute, ask some more questions.
Yeah, and she's like, so you two kill vampires for like a living? Because I haven't I seen you at Holy Crepe Study? And they're like, well, we both work at the resort district. And Vanessa immediately is like, how do I help? And she's like, I know you don't. This is how people die, Vanessa. And Vanessa's just like, but I want to help. And Lana's like, okay, well, if I don't train her, she's just gonna die faster. So I guess I have to take both these two under my wing.
Denny didn't seem like he was that into it, honestly, to me. Like, Vanessa seems very much like, I would like to do this. And you're like, whoa, slow down a minute. Do you know what you're getting into? And Denny's like, I guess I'll help. And
he's
like,
pulling and I'll be by your side.
And I'll stay out of your way.
Yeah, like, he is giving very much Arnold from Book of Mormon.
Yes.
You're making things up again, Jenny. And also, like, Vanessa is saved. She's realized vampires exist, and then she finds out that like Lana paid for a doctor, and she's like, well, how much you pay? I can at least pay you back. And Lana's like, don't worry about it, I don't charge victims. And Denny is like, here's the breakdown of all the money you owe this woman.
Well, honestly, like, Lana's a nicer person than me, because I would have been like, well, you know what, I am tight on money, so it would be $3,000. Thanks.
Right? Like, I know. I mean, Lana's a trooper, because
you're welcome for saving your life.
I would be the person who's bad enough with my money to be like, it's okay, you couldn't help it. Like,
everybody
sorry I saved your life.
Okay, I'll take that. You offered.
So I also love how often Lana's like, so I left and then I got high. But she had called off work, so she has to go back into work. And she like, a lot of this, I like it because it's very much like, Hill does a great job of showing the realities of someone who is poor, where she's like, oh, I had to take a day off, so I'm out of the overtime range. Okay, yes. If I do go into work, I have overtime now.
The math that Lana has to do, I thought was really realistic, where it was like, okay, she's actually trying to figure out, okay, I took this day off. And they're making me come in this day, and crap, I know I need this much, and I'm gonna have an overdraft fee, so I know it'll be this much, and this has to happen. So yeah, I really like that part of it.
Right. And then we have a like plot chapter where she goes into work and then she teaches them how to fight vampires, which is mostly like just run laps
Denny
a
and
long
Vanessa.
time. Denny and Vanessa. She's like, just run laps a lot. You need to get in shape.
Yeah.
Be in shape so you don't die. And like she kind of teaches you about the whole like vampires can charm you, they can trick you, you have to hurt yourself. And she also sees that Denny kind of probably has some mental health issues because he has a lot of scarring on his arm, trigger warnings for that. And Vanessa's confidence is infectious and baffling to Lauren.
It is baffling.
She's just so in on it where I'm like, in 8 books, do we find out that like she's in a secret cult? Because that feels like it would happen.
I mean, I don't know about this character.
So anyway, she is still working, trying to hunt for the vampires, but she can't seem to find any of them. There is like supposed to be this one vampire woman who she's noticed. And someone drops in that they have information and they want a cut of this. And she's like, oh, there are always these leeches who come into iHunt who like gather information and just take your hard-earned work.
Right.
And it's like, I would probably be that person because I am not in shape and I could not kill vampires. But I can look at lots of video footage for you. It is something I do in my normal job. So she does like accept the writer for this. So she gets to see the woman. She is sucking blood from the MAGA guy from before. And it's like, I wouldn't have recognized him except for his broken nose and bleeding face. So it must have happened immediately after she beat this man up. He's just sucked dry by a vampire. And the vampire is young, redhead, pale, skinny, covered with freckles, and curvy. Which skinny and curvy are, that's true. You can be skinny and curvy. But she like has inhuman speed. So all of that stuff. So she also like overstays on a her work break, and her boss is terrible, so sends her to HR. She has to go to human resources. They say she has to take a drug test, even though she likes the human resources person who's like 68 and is only working because her 35-year-old son has some health problems. And Trudy's like, we need to do a drug test. And she's like, I can't pass a drug test. And if she takes the drug test, it would be flagged and she could not get hired anywhere else. And there is the whole legal stuff, which is very true, where it's like California law says you can't be subject to a drug test unless you're injured on the job. And she's like, that's true, but you sign contract rights away when you joined this workforce, which is something jobs can do, unfortunately. So she quits the job so that she doesn't have to take the drug test and get red flagged. And like, this is the stuff that sucks that I'm sure is accurate. I'd be interested to check with Olivia on her research, but she's like, we have to escort you off the premises company policy, but you can't stop to get your own clothes. You have to mail them back and pay for the mailing. And it's like, that sucks.
Well, I thought they said that they would pay for it, that they were going to send it in a
pay for
box, but I'm sure that this is a thing, especially with
posted paid. Yeah.
Postage paid box, but I'm sure that is a thing where they escort people off the premises if they are not compliant with a part of their contract, and then they probably do something like that where they're like, okay, well, you can't go to your locker, we'll just send you the stuff.
But it also just sucks because it's like, if we don't get back in the next 14 days, they'll take it out of your final paycheck. And this was where I was like, because in my mind, it's like, you can't afford to have that taken out of your final paycheck because you know it's super expensive. Also, there's tons of issues with the mail sometimes. So sometimes it gets lost. So like, it is the cost of time to being poor.
Oh yeah.
Because if you ever lose that, like you have to spend so much time on the phone trying to get that money back.
Right.
Like, so that's like recently they found out that like if you return books to Amazon, they take it from the author's paycheck. Like Amazon doesn't eat the cost.
Oh my gosh.
So people who kept like using Amazon like a library ended up like authors were getting charged for it. And it's like, yeah, use a library for a library. That's why the libraries exist. Like, yes, it takes extra time, but like, don't take that money from authors.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Anyway,
people.
She has to go back into the shopping district. So she buys some new clothes. And she goes hunting for the redheaded vampire.
It's always a redhead. It's always a sexy redhead.
I know, right?
How many things
guilty?
Always a sexy redhead.
Just bolstering my confidence by saying you meant me. But anyway, the MAGA guy comes out of the woodwork and starts beating her up. She has to fight through it. He's charging her. And she's like, no, then I just get mad about the day. And she fights him off. Oh, and so she starts fighting him, and a group of people are out and about because he was kind of an idiot and attacked her like in a crowd. And so she kills him with an Old Navy spike from a fence. And she's like, thank God it's real wood. And then everyone is like watching her being like, did she just murder a man? And she's like,
this is where this gets funny.
I know. And she's like, look at the special effects I did for my new movie.
And everyone is so dumb and buys it.
I know, where it's like, yeah, a guy just disappeared in the middle of a street with like nothing. So she has to snap a couple of selfies, and she does get $5,000. But she also goes viral.
Yeah. And people are like obsessed with this theory now that this, or not theory, but this new movie that she's going to be making. And they're like emailing her all the time now, like, hey, do you want to?
Well, and she also was like, yeah, I was once into film. So like there are a couple of short stories of mine online, like short videos. So it works. But anyway, then like Denny is like, I could see the redhead. And she's like, okay, you can follow her, but be careful because like, I just don't think you're good at this. Like, she's so careful. I also like that like they're texting back and forth and she's like, scouts on her, and he's like, skirts on her, and she's like, typo fail, Danny. Is it really though? Like, just so funny. And he invites her to a party because Denny is in love with her. Because he is very much giving me Xander vibes from Buffy. Very much. So they kind of go through this. She's like, if this goes viral, I wonder if Donald Trump will whine about me on Twitter. 2016. And so Denny like is following that woman around. She decides she's kind of bored, so she messaged Denny and Vanessa, but they're both working past midnight. I like that she like has zero friends. She's like, well, I mean, these two strangers. Do you guys want to hang out? And I'm like, I've been that desperate for friendship before, so I get it. I was gonna
say, I understand.
It's hard. And so she ends up. Her mom messages her, and she's like very Christian. And says like, a million pretty girls like you go to California hoping to get into movies. They all end up pregnant or on drugs. And she goes, I am on drugs, Mom, and I'm happier than I've ever been. She's working out. And her mom also asked for money because even though they're a Christian and they hate all like MAGA things, they also benefit from the government.
They have no problem accepting money
from her. Yeah. And so, and they also like and she goes, I check Facebook, and her mom just shared a meme about lazy millennials who mooch off their parents. And that is what you call projection. Yep. And so she's working out. Some guy tries to talk to her, and he's like, you're that girl from the video. And she just ignores him. And she is rude to him, and she walks out because she's just like, why can't people just leave me alone? And like you said, there are a ton of companies reaching out to her being like, we want to do your movie. You're so good at this. You're the girl from the video. And she's just kind of like coasting on trying to get money and everything. And she ends up going to a party with Denny. This is where Denny gets really weird because you find out he doesn't drink, but she's like drunk, and she kind of wants just a fun night to let loose where she can get high and drunk, and has like $140 dress on. And he kind of, she's like coming on to him. He does the whole like quote unquote nice guy thing of like, I can't when you're drunk. But then
I want us
like
both to remember.
I want it to be special.
I want them both be sober when this happens for the first time.
But he also like doesn't mean it. It's more like he wants.
Because then he's just like, sure, let's go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, and he kind of lets her keep like pushing on to it and doesn't really shut it down as much. It's more like he's saying he wants the excuse to say he shut it down.
He's like, oh, I tried.
Yeah. And then let's see. Isn't she attacked at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
So the redheaded vampire shows up at this party.
Yes. And
she had just went into the bathroom and she comes out of the bath. Well, she goes into the bathroom and then she does some drugs with warfarin in them because she was like, just in case. Good thing she did, because she comes out then and she, I believe, starts making out with Denny and then is attacked.
Yes, you are
by
right.
This redheaded vampire who then she realizes that she took warfarin and she's like, dang you, why would you do that?
Every time
she thought that was going to kill this one, but then it didn't work.
Right. And she also needs her purse, but she left it upstairs in the bathroom, which there is a little bit of a typo because at one point she says she throws something in her purse and then she realizes her purse is gone. And I was like, oh, wait, I just remembered this purse was here. But that happens. This is a self-published novel. We give all the credit for this romp of a novel. And he finds her purse, like, but everything's gone out.
Yeah, Lana's attacked, and then she needs Denny to like get her purse so she can use her medical supplies that she has.
Right. And when they get back down there, the redhead is gone and left a woman who she drained of all her blood, and she is dead. And she's like, well, we need to find out they become
like little zombies, basically.
Yeah, if you take too much or you have like vampiric blood in you, or you take too much of the blood, you do become zombies and you just kind of kill without thought. Which is a fun little drop of what can happen later on. But also she's having huge issues because since she took the blood thinner, her blood's not clotting like she needs it to.
So they have to call her friend Jane again.
Yeah, she has to call Jane. And I think doesn't Denny say he doesn't drive? And she's like, well, I can't drive.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where they can't really call an Uber because she's draining blood everywhere. And so Jane comes over, gives her more blood, warns her about the fact that she keeps losing a ton of blood. And then it leads to Jane leaving and her deciding she does want to have sex again, which is every woman's right. But it also leads to one of the most uncomfortable sex scenes I've ever read on paper.
I was very uncomfortable by this.
It's supposed to be uncomfortable, guys. That's the point of it. But she describes it in very graphic details, these sounds and feelings of when you have sex. And when you read about that on a paper that is not like romantic in energy,
that it's like, oh, this isn't great.
It's like, none of this sounds good.
Yeah.
And even as she's in it, it's like one of those moments where you're having sex with a man and you're like, oh, I was not actually in the mood to have sex. I was in the mood for a certain type of sex. And this is not what
this is not it.
But he quote unquote catches feels afterwards. Like they wake up and he's like, oh, do you want to go get lunch, or you want to go on a date? And she's like, Denny, I had lost so much blood last night and I was so high and drunk, I just wanted to have sex. Like, I don't regret what happened, but no. And then he's upset about it because, again, he wanted it to be quote unquote special, even though she gave no indication that she ever wanted a special relationship.
A special relationship with her.
And she decides to fix the dress that got ruined because it's $140 and now it's becoming $180 dress, but I also get that. And she has to go through, cancel all her credit cards because they ordered $1,200 at Foot Locker and $300 worth of pizza when someone stole her credit cards.
Well, her purse is in the bathroom. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. She says, who steals someone's credit cards and orders pizza delivery?
I mean, I don't know what I would not steal somebody's credit card, but I definitely would be like, I'll order some food.
No. But she decides she wants to go out for a hunt. She asks if they want to like train and get everything. And so Denny is kind of like, yeah, I think I can do that. And then
he becomes very like wishy-washy about it anymore, though,
because he was in it for her,
just for her. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's kind of like hunting for the redheaded lady. She's kind of seeing everything she can do. She prowls old school, and she starts going after like monsters to try to hunt them, kind of traps them to a seedy hotel. But she wants to get Vanessa and Denny in there so that they can get their chance. And she sees a woman shows up, and it is Natalie, the redheaded vampire. And she's like, I'm not here to kill you. And she's like got the hots for Natalie, which isn't helped by the fact that Natalie has sucked her blood, and that is how that works. So she keeps trying to convince herself like, oh God, I'm just attracted to her because sucking blood, not because, and she does apologize for trying to kill Lana the night before and killing the other girl, because she was like, I would have died had I not, like, you didn't give me much of a choice. And she's like, I don't want to kill you. And she offers her money not to kill anyone else. And she's like, I could get a lot more money by killing all you guys. But she's like, you're also in over your head. You have no idea what's going on with the vampires. Like, we're a cult pretty much. So you should be careful.
There's all these different families.
But she offers her 10 grand not to kill her. And she asks her for her real name. And she says that it is Natalie. So she didn't lie to her. She also the next day gets a job in San Maria County for a werewolf. It's a rush job. And it's another contract to kill where they like have to go pick up equipment from the company that wants to kill them. She calls in Vanessa to do it, and Denny's kind of not into it, so he doesn't go with them. And Vanessa like calls her out on it and calls her boss all the time, which is why I was like, is Vanessa going to be a bad guy? Because she's very entrenched into them with no background. But she's like, hey,
sure, boss, whatever you say, boss.
Sure, boss, whatever you say, boss. And she's like, I don't like what you did with Denny. And she's like, I know, it was really unprofessional. And and she's like, he's really upset. Don't put him in danger. And it's like, well, at least you're thinking about it in the right context, Vanessa. Like, you're not shaming, but and so they kind of just come to a settlement of like, she's not going to do that again. He's way too clingy. They go to the corporation, get everything, have to sign an agreement of non-liability and privacy policies. And they are about to get $7,500 each, though. So they're like, yeah, we're going to sign this because we need that money. Then they go after a werewolf into like a rundown area. And she was like, they're all so stupid. They would vote for Ronald Reagan, even though like that's why they're all here because of trickle down economics. And they're all kind of racist and sexist. There's a guy there who's like obviously a Nazi. And someone asks about an FBI agent who was there. And so she knows the feds are getting involved. And she also has silver bullets. Oh, they run into a lady who has silver bullets because she's like protecting everyone from a werewolf. And she's like, okay, maybe just go inside and let professionals handle it. And the lady's like, fine, I'll go inside. But if you don't take care of it, I'm going to. This is my house. And it's like, that's like fair.
My neighborhood, I've been taking care of these people. And also it should be noted that in this neighborhood, like Vanessa and Lana stand out because they are women of color.
Yes, I forgot that to mention. Lana is also a woman of color. She is biracial. She is, I believe she is Hispanic, and I want to say, I forget. I know she is, her mom is from somewhere in Asia, but I cannot remember off the top of my head, and I do not want to misstate her ethnicity. But she is biracial.
And then Vanessa is Black, right?
And Vanessa is Black. So they stand out because it's a lot of white people in a rundown area. So anyway, Vanessa's supposed to try to distract the wolf, and she's supposed to go after him. But things kind of get messed up. They have to start running. They're trying to get to the car. So she like gets stuck on a merry-go-round. It's all a little bit like haphazard, which you can expect from like two people who are like technically professionals, but not fully professionals.
There's so many times when they're like, we're professionals. And I'm kind of like,
no, you're not.
You're not really professionals.
You have access to an app, but that's about it.
Right.
So and the wolf like keeps going after them, even though they're in their car. There's like a huge dent in it. And they like, she goes, they're headed towards a concrete barrier. She's like, you have to go through a fence. My car can handle a fence. It can't handle a concrete barrier. So like, as them just screaming at each other, like trying to get at it. And so then she is able to get a vial of like stuff into the wolf's mouth that's supposed to like kind of knock him out. And they get to him and he kind of changes back into who he is. And
the Nazi guy that
it's
she
the
was
Nazi.
like, called it. Should have.
Yep.
Should
have just attacked him. He was awful. And they are wearing protective equipment because they say like if you get scratched, it's like 50-50 you turn into a vampire or not.
A werewolf, you mean?
A werewolf, sorry. 50-50 you turn into a werewolf or not.
Yeah, they were wearing like padded clothing, it sounds like.
Yeah. And so she gets the money transfer, but then her bank flags it for fraud. Even because iHunt tries to keep it under $10,000 so like the taxes don't get hit. And there's a huge issue with that. And she calls the company and they're like, well, we already paid you. So that's your money. And it's a huge, so she's like without any money for a while. So not great. And she's just trying for days to actually get the money. She's trying to calm herself. And then Natalie comes in with her $10,000 in cash. And she like tells her that nothing is going to go on. And she also reveals that the person who tried to hire her to kill all these vampires were other vampires, because they've kind of tried to pack together and have like this main leader. And there are vampire supremacists who want to change everyone into vampires. And that was how Natalie got changed into a vampire. You also find out that vampires can be glamored into doing what other people want. And that's how someone told her to go after the MAGA guy after she beat up on him. And you can also find out that Natalie can read Lana's thoughts. And how very Robert Jordan-esque.
Oh, gosh.
Then all of a sudden the cops show up. They are looking for something to deal with the shootings with the werewolf, because there was like gun stuff going on. And it's like, someone saw your car. And she's like, that sounds strange. Wasn't me.
Like, what about this beat up car out here?
And the vampire kind of glamours him to leave them alone. She also talks about how like it's an act of war for vampires to kill other vampires. And all this stuff. So that's why she kind of doesn't want her to go after her anymore, because she's kind of innocent in all this. She just wants to live her life. And Lana's like, do you ever want to talk? And Natalie's like, not really, but thanks for the offer. And they have like a nice moment of two people who were just hunting each other. So she has to cancel on Vanessa and Denny for training because she has like she doesn't have any leads to pursue. She has to still contact the bank. She and Vanessa do end up trading, and then she gets audited by the IRS because of all the deposits she's making from iHunt. It is a huge thing where we get into like the issues of the IRS, which I have been audited before, and it sucks. And they kind of put a freeze on her account, so she can't reach any of the money again. And that afternoon she cries and she screams and shows kind of the realities of this, where like fighting monsters is easier than dealing with the system. Yeah. And iHunt is like, oh, we are so sorry. We'll give you future money orders and wires, but like we can't give you any more money for this huge mess up. And so that's so frustrating. I know. And so then she also like at some point someone wants to like buy the rights to her TV show, and she's like, sure, I'll do that.
She needs some money.
Yeah. And she also like decides to try to talk to someone on a vampire consult for a screenplay.
But then like the person that hired her on iHunt finds out that she had accepted that screenplay gig. And then they're like, no, you can't do that because we hired you to do this. And we have this and that in our contract hiring you. So you can't do just so many things.
It's so funny. And then she also hires something for a succubus to go pick that up. And they want it alive. And she's like, oh God, I hate that, because rich people always want a succubus alive because it like turns people on and everything. And then she goes on a very random date with Natalie. But she also goes to like talk to the guy who wants to capture the succubus. She finds out that he's a warlock who created the succubus, or like a sorcerer who brought the succubus into the neighborhood, and then it got loose, and so it's just kind of going here, there, and everywhere. And he thinks that it's at this one place for the person who hired the succubus, who he believes murdered his last wife, and like wants to take the succubus for like weird sex stuff, pretty much. And then she and Natalie just go on a date. They're kind of hanging out. Natalie tells her what all the people are thinking. There are a lot of homophobes around, and a lot of racists around. So go figure, in Disneyland. And then as they're on their date, like two of the people who they've been reading the thoughts on, who are kind of awful, try to attack them. And Lana is harmed in the process, and Natalie gives her some of her blood to help. And she's like, this feels amazing. And I believe they ended up being vampires. So she takes a picture of them so she can get money, which is also very funny to be like, oh my God, we just killed these people. Hold on. Let's take a picture.
Let's take a selfie.
But first, let me take a selfie. And she also talks about like how she came to LA after she was changed. They kind of share their backstories and how like they tried to get her into this like vampire pack cult thing, and she pretended to be a part of it to like gather information, but then she ran away, and her other friend like already returned home, but she felt like she couldn't go back home. They bond, and then Lana kind of has feelings for her. And then she also finds out that her place was busted into, and the cops are there, and it's a huge thing. And she's like, okay, I have to go. She
wants Natalie like glamour them, and she's like, no, there's too many. Like, you can't keep this straight.
I can't. Yeah, if I like, people will notice if I glamour all of these cops into thinking nothing happened. And then Regina says that she wants to kick her out, her landlord, and she's like, I need 30 days. I could take you to court. And Regina is pissed about it. And on the apartment, there is a huge stay away printed in red paint on the wall. And they're like, do you have any enemies? And she's like, no. And she's panicking. She realizes that it's probably like vampires or someone who's after her. And Natalie's like, I'm probably in danger too then. So they need to get a hotel or something. And they get an Airbnb. Oh, wait, no, they get a safe house from the app called Safe House. She notes that there used to be an app called Safe House to secure crash places.
Get an Airbnb.
They do end up getting a Airbnb because it was like there wasn't enough saturation to make it reliable. And honestly, an app where like, hey, all of these places are safe houses. Someone could definitely find all those houses.
I was going to say, it doesn't seem like a safe house if everyone can find them on apps.
And so they find an Airbnb, and they have to be careful because like it has to be a private house. They have to be very close. And she does note that Airbnb contributes to gross gentrification problems, which I agree with. And Natalie reads her mind and realizes that she's like, wants to have sex. And she's like, we're not doing that. And she's like, don't read my mind. That's private. And they end up going to bed and, wake up. I like this. Natalie can like broadcast her thoughts in the dream world and she can kind of hear them, and it's really weird. And so she's kind of just hanging out with her. They're catching feelings very, very quickly for one another. Which she makes a joke about, like, I was going to make a joke about two lesbians moving in on the first date. But then they leave. They kind of have to like go their separate ways for a little bit. She meets up with Vanessa, and then she goes to spy on the house with all the succubus stuff going on. She sees a way to get in. She kind of like flits in. There is a security system with videos, but she like kind of gets around them. And the guy comes in and she realizes that he's trying to like become a warlock or sorcerer. And he can do that by killing the succubus. The succubus is like, please kill me. She doesn't want to because she doesn't want to like kill an innocent being. And if she could return the succubus to the other sorcerer, then he could potentially get his powers back and send her back to where she needs to be. But
it doesn't work out.
It does not work out. And the guy does end up taking her soul through the ritual, and she becomes a husk of herself, and she feels very guilty about it. Yeah. And it's very complicated. Oh, right. Okay. So she and Vanessa are trying to like,
because there's a bunch of prisoners in the place too.
Right. Well, they're in there and the sorcerer is doing his thing and like becoming a sorcerer. They find a bunch of like people who were definitely sex trafficked or trafficked into the country in his basement, locked away. And then she ends up finding out that Vanessa is a werewolf. Because when she was scratched by the Nazi, and then the 50-50 chance didn't come on her end, and she ends up killing the warlock or the sorcerer. Sorry, I keep calling him a warlock. She ends up shooting him in the head. And then they try to convince all the captives that like, it's okay, she's a werewolf, but like not a bad one. And we're going to save you guys, but you can't tell anyone what just happened. And they kind of just agree to like get them a little bit of help, a little area to stay in, and like some Chinese takeout in a trash can, you know? And she like tells Natalie everything that's going on. And Natalie figures out something to do with all of these people because Natalie
I'm conflicted about. But...
Natalie girl bosses into the sun. And they put down a deposit on a little place with a guy named Lou who is questionable. They renovate it and they hire all the people who were trafficked into the country to become like blood banks for vampires. So vampires can have
people for vampires to feed on.
People for vampires to feed on. And they will get a cut of the money. They have like, they're allowed to like be safe. It's kind of, I think it's a mirror of like safe sex work, which is okay. I do feel conflicted about the fact that these people were trafficked and may not feel like they have. I was going to
say it. I know it's mentioned that they have to be okay with it and that there will be other jobs available. But at the same time, when I was reading, I was like, this feels a little icky to me.
But I do think that Hill does try to make sure we know that they're consenting and that they don't want to go home, that they are people who need the job, and that, like, again, sex work is real work. So I'm less conflicted about, like, I do think it's a little one for one.
I guess I didn't even make the sex work comparison. I was just like, oh, these people were trafficked and I don't know how I feel about them.
I felt like it was very much trying to get
to stay for vampires to feed on them.
I think that is a fair thing to be concerned about, and to like, it's a little knob to turn in your head of like, oh, we need to make sure that these people are consensual adults and that they want to be here and that they're choosing. But like, I do think it's more because it's supposed to be like a 1920s gangster style vampiric club. And so that's where, and like the whole feeling of ecstasy when people drink your blood, I think it is supposed to be a metaphor for sex work.
It probably is. I just definitely missed it.
It's okay. I talk about how sex work is real work and think about that stuff a lot. So anyway, they like start making the club. They're having a good time. They're together. They like each other. And then the head vampire comes in who like is controlling all the other vampires. And he kind of says like, hey, I'm cool with you guys existing, but if I send people here, I want them to have a discount on the blood you guys provide. And if they don't come from me, that's totally fine. But for a while, until they get settled, I want this. And they make a deal with him. And they're like, it might get a little bit more complex, but we're going to try to exist in any way we can right now and accept this proposition. And so she doesn't have to go to iHunt every single time anymore for things like ghouls and everything. And that is the end of the first novel of iHunt. And there is a whole expanded universe. So if you guys are interested in this book, you should definitely continue on. I'm interested to see if it's Lana in the next books or just like we tap into various characters and whatnot. I didn't even look at the first chapter of the next one, and it looks like it is going to be about Lana in the next book because we do have a monologue for that. So we will follow Lana as it continues. But Laura, what are first reactions of this book?
I thought it was fun.
I thought it was fun. I enjoyed this book.
It was really different, but I thought it was fun.
It was giving me very much
Buffy vibes. Yes.
Buffy and Angel vibes, like the whole episodic, like, oh, today we're doing this. Today we're doing this. And this is,
I had not even watched that much Buffy, just like occasionally an episode here or there. And I was just like, oh yeah, this really reminds me of this.
And this is in the interview that I did with Olivia. But she talked about how Buffy was an inspiration. I'm sure that will come out if Laura approves of the sound quality, or else we will be doing an interview with her, and I'm sure we can ask her about it. But she talked about how like Buffy was an inspiration, but it was about like there are like 2 episodes in the entire Buffy fandom where Buffy has to like work in public service. And I've actually seen scenes from that episode where she's working for a burger place and she goes to hunt a vampire, and the vampire thinks she smells bad and runs away from her. And she's like, hey, oh my gosh, because she smells so bad from working all day in a grease pit. And Olivia talked about how like she was more interested in that aspect of it, about like how Buffy might have to exist in this real world with this whole thing. And like even in the book, it kind of touches on that, where people are like, a lot of times you think that this should be altruistic, but like I have to pay my bill. Like,
right.
It gives very real
people
world
can't just
stakes.
like do stuff for free. Yeah.
Right. Where it's like, especially in the gig economy that we live in now, like everything has to be monetized. Even you and I talk about like, oh, could our podcast ever make money if we can convince people to listen to every single thing? Because it's like, this takes time, and time can be money, especially if you're investing in stuff. So she was very interested in that, which I think is interesting with the themes of like the sex work at the end, where it's like, well, sex work is real work. And so like, it is good that it's 2 women running this, because you do think it'll be a little bit more consensual and more things, but it does have that flag in your head where you're like, well, these people were also trafficked. Are we making sure, you know? So I think it's interesting to see people who are just trying to do their best and their reactions to real life situations.
Definitely.
So yeah.
Good take.
But I really liked this book. I think it's a romp of a novel. It is, guys, if you haven't read it, even if you've listened to this, like go read it. It's only like 240 pages. It's fun. And next week we're going to talk about all the different characters and get into the Vanessa of it all, because I think you and I were most interested in her.
I am confused by Vanessa. Vanessa doesn't ask enough questions, and Vanessa's just a little too eager, I guess.
I want to know if Vanessa ends up being like part of like a witch's circle or something. It's like, no.
We know now she's a werewolf. So
yeah. But I also love,
which I totally called that happening. I was like, that she's definitely going to become some kind of creature.
So I honestly was surprised, because I just figured she was going to be villain, like secret villain all along. And I was like, I wasn't sure if it was creature, but I knew it was something. And then when I found out, I was like, oh no, the werewolf swiped her. I'm like, but I really think she's too on board with all this. Like, she seems heavily suspect to me.
I'm very baffled by her.
I know. So we both feel similarly about Vanessa. And we'll get into all of that next week. But we hope you enjoyed this discussion of our first ever indie intermission, iHunt by Olivia Hill. Bonus episode for all y'all. And we just really liked this book. Good job. Yeah. I very much enjoyed the story. So if you liked the story or our conversation about it, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Rating, reviewing, and subscribing is a great way to get involved with the podcast. You can also reach out to us at our pod. That's OWWR pod on all the social platforms. Let us know what your thoughts on iHunt were and your thoughts about the characters before we discuss those next week. Thank you guys so much for joining us after our little hiatus. I forgot to mention last week we didn't have an episode because someone turned 30 and we were very excited for her, and we hope she had a wonderful birthday. She got some amazing gifts, including an air fryer, which I'm very jealous of.
Well,
I hope you're using
Hannah got
it.
me an amazing gift, which was a box of blind dates with a book, and it was 30 books because I turned 30.
I got her
Awesome gift.
30.
I've already opened 2 of them. One because I wanted to open one on my birthday, and then I opened one yesterday because it was a long day at work, and I was like, I want a treat. So I'm going to open one.
They are supposed to be treats, so I'm glad you're taking them as such. I do love that Laura, when she first got it, she was like, there's like a 50-50 chance I'm just going to open all of these at once. It's like, I honestly wondered. But I also got some people who helped out. So if you were someone who suggested a book, including Ready Reads Regularly, FTF, Fiction
Thank
Fans,
you so much.
and Sandra from Story Darlings, I want to thank you all for joining me in my weird little gift that took me a year and a half.
It was not a weird gift. It was really awesome. A great gift. I'm so excited about it. I'm going to be documenting all the books on my Instagram, Good Books, Great Goats. So definitely go there, and they'll be in my stories. So check them out.
And join us next week to continue on with this indie intermission. Bye.
Bye.